I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. I am Reverend Irene Smith, aka Miss Irene for my young peeps. Join me each week at the table as I sit with my co-hosts, some Gen X, Gen Ys, Gen Zs, and beyond, and older and younger, as we discuss life issues and we discuss the victories that we all have. We hear the voices of every generation speak about their trials, their tribulations, their victories, and in those conversations, we all grow. So I want to welcome you to join me each week at the table. Of course, I have with me always my awesome co-host. I'm excited to welcome Minister James Durham back. I told you all last week he was out some weeks ago helping with the election, getting people back and forth. So he's here. I told you a week or so ago about, how about them Cowboys? And, he told me you only got one time to cheer and then it's over. But Minister Durham, he is a mentor for young men, for older men, using the Nehemiah principle to build men. I'm looking forward to that day when he writes that book, when he does that curriculum, whatever that he's working on, and have that conference, be it virtual or in person, that we might get excited about what the Lord continues to do in his life. Well, hello, Minister Durham. It's good to see you.
Well, amen to all of that. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Reverend.
And then I have that awesome young woman, Pastor Shamika Latte Oliver, whose mantra is building the best you. And she has this awesome women's ministry, Women Who Connect Lead. Women Who Lead Connect. I got it right that time. Women Who Lead Connect. And she has this shirt on. So I'm going to welcome her and I'm going to ask her, what is the wording on this shirt? We see uncommon woman, but what is the rest of this language that's there?
Yes, it is. Well, first of all, thank you, Reverend Smith, for just having me here once again. I'm always enjoying it with you and Minister James and all of the other guests. This shirt right here says "Uncommon Woman." God uses uncommon women to do extraordinary things. Hey, it doesn't matter where we come from, what we've been through, how low we have been. God can still use us. When everybody else counts us out, God still counts us in. So he can change our misery into a ministry and manifest that thing.
Well, that's awesome. And what a great way to introduce our special guest today. And that is April Wilson. I met April years and years ago when she was just a young lady. And to see her now, she's graduated from Bowie State University, majoring in accounting. And God just has continued to bless her. She now has her own, and she majored in accounting, you all. So, don't count my sisters out. I'm excited about my sisters. She majored in accounting, and she has her own business, financial empowerment, and she's passionate. Her passion is about educating people about financial literacy and empowering everyone to be in control of their finances. And this is the season and this is the time to be in control and to be empowered about our finances. So welcome, April. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Smith. I'm excited for being here.
And so we're going to start this conversation off by allowing our audience to get to know you in the way that I know you, by telling us a little bit about how you became interested in finances from high school or whenever it may have started, even elementary years, and then your journey through your financial classes at Bowie. And maybe if there were barriers you as a young African-American woman dealt with internally and externally as you move forward into this arena of accounting.
Sure. Well, I was first introduced in accounting, investment, and money banking in high school. It was a program called Academy Finance. And I joined a program, and from there, I was just amazed. I didn't know what stocks were. I didn't know how to manage money. And when I learned it, I said, well, I think this is what I want to do. We had a teacher come in there one time and said, I own Disney. And I'm like, who owns Disney? You must be rich. But once I understood stock, he owned a piece of Disney by purchasing stock. So it made me more interested when I graduated from high school to study accounting. So I studied accounting. I enjoyed accounting at Bowie State University, and I graduated with my degree in accounting. Worked in corporate America for about 13, 14 years in accounting. And I discovered my passion was to educate people about their finances. I wanted to empower them to be financially secure, financially stable, because I thought it was very important, especially in the Black community, that we understand this at a young age and make sure that we are in control of our finances, because Black people are the largest consumers. So, yeah. So since then, I've been very passionate about it. And I did open up my company, Financial Empowerment, where I provide financial coaching.
So you bring up a great point talking about the African American community being a leading in consumerism. And so I'd like for you to talk a little bit maybe about what is the, when we think about finances for the African American community, what do you think is the construct about our thinking about money in general?
Well, in general, when I try to talk to all different age groups, I have a niece that's 19. So I talk to her and her friends. I talk to people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and just trying to find out what's that common ground. And I come to find out that a lot of people like their money to be seen. So they like to spend a lot of their money. They like it to be seen, to feel like I have money. But what I learned was once I sat down and I said, well, let me educate you about money and help them understand finances and what money is utilized for, how it can help you become financially free. Then their thoughts about money changed. They start thinking, well, those luxury brands are not as important as I thought, once they start understanding the importance of saving their money, being financially secure, saving for retirement, and understanding that you can live a better lifestyle when you control and more control of your finances.
Minister Durham, when we talk about this construct that in the African American community, and April brought up something that an expression I've not heard before, and that is we like for our money to be seen. Mm-hmm. What is that was eye-opening, April. I've never heard that, but that is right on it. So talk to us, Minister Durham.
It's very interesting. I just started watching Fargo last night, right? And there's a scene where Chris Rock, his character, is going to a bank and he's trying to sell them on credit cards. So this is back in, I think, the 50s or maybe even 20s or something like that. And he said that people want to look rich. And that's another way of saying this. She said people want their money to be seen. And it's very important, April. I appreciate you having that conversation with individuals to get them from that mindset of looking rich or wanting their money to be seen to wanting their money to work for them. So Ken, I just want to hear a little bit more of that conversation, because that's not an easy turn for people to make. If you're used to whenever you get paid, I'm gonna go out and get this next thing, or I'm saving up to get this one thing, or usually we sacrifice what we want most to get what we want right now. So if you can just share a little bit more of that conversation, how does that go? So maybe perhaps we can help out someone who's watching this show right now.
Absolutely. So mostly what I start by, I'll ask them well, what do you like to do with your money? What does, financial stability and freedom look like? So they're like, oh, I want to, I got to buy these type of clothing and spend all this money on, luxury brands or materialistic things, spend a lot of money on hair, nails, clothes. And then, I asked them, I said, well, okay, so you get laid off. What are you going to do? Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm only left with $50. And I'm like, yes, so that's the problem, So once I educate them about it, because I'm like, it's nothing wrong with spending money on the things that you want. But you have to do it in moderation. It has to be a balance. So you want to take care of your own finances first before you splurge and buy luxury things that you like. So I would talk to them and I say, well, at any time, no job is 100% secure. So if you have these expenses each month, but you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you lose your job, then how are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to pay your car note, your utilities? If you have kids to take care of, what's going to happen? And so usually it's that big question mark, like, I haven't thought about that. And so once I see that this can't happen, then it starts the conversation like, so what do I do? So I talk to them about saving money. And, whether you can save money every week, bi-weekly, or monthly, it just all depends on how often a person gets paid. It all depends on the expenses that they have to pay each month. Sometimes, loans, you have to pay that each month. And also, how do they like to spend their money? They're going to have to cut back on expenses to even save more money. So I think once I talk to them about that, I see their mindset starts to change, or, they end up seeing someone who has experienced been laid off and they're like, oh, I understand. I get it. How am I going to pay my bills? I don't want to be evicted. I don't want to go into foreclosure. And I think that's where they understand that it can happen to anyone at any time.
Yes. So that's a great conversation, right? And you talk to the individual and let's say they're ready and they're like, okay, I understand, April, you make a lot of sense. I want to make that move, but I just don't make enough money to save. What about that person?
I hear that all the time. And I tell them it's impossible. I always say it's impossible because they'll say it. And then as I talk to them about what they spend, then it's like, well, I got to go out to eat 3 times a week. And I'm like, do you really? So then we start peeling back like, oh, let's peel back the layers of what you're really doing each month. So what they think is a priority is really not a priority. I have to go out to eat 3 times a week. And you don't. I have to get my nails done every 2 weeks. And you don't. So these are some things. Yeah. And it's hard to have a conversation when you tell people. Yeah.
So, Pastor Shamika, dealing with women, the number of women that you deal with, and I keep going back to this expression that I've just never heard before, but it's so true that we like for our money to be seen. And so dealing with women, so many women that come to you, Pastor Shamika, this conversation of finances, what's the construct that you hear when it comes to money?
People, when I talk to different women, it's like they don't know the power of investing in themselves. They don't have the idea that I'm worth it. And a lot of times, if you don't have the idea that I'm worth it, you won't do it. Or sometimes we want handouts, right? We want handouts. And so that's one of the biggest things is, and thank you for asking me that question, because even right now, I just finished doing a master class that really talked about how to maximize your business in a pandemic, right? And so even with that, it's like, what do you do now? How do you position yourself now? And one of the things was money. Like, how are you going to invest in your future that you have something that you could literally, create a solid foundation on, right? And I gave them maybe a few apps and things like that. Like, just do it. It's gonna build up. It's gonna build up. And so I would even ask April that right now, like, being that we are in a pandemic, and I'm learning, like, hey, if you got DIY skills, DIY everything that you can. And whatever you cannot whatever you save at in your DIY, put that money in something that's going to grow over time, And so can you just really talk about that, especially during this time of the pandemic, how we should be responding with our different investments?
Absolutely. Especially during a pandemic, they're going to have to readjust their budget. They're going to have to cut back on spending. And like you said, the DIY, if you can make adjustments and do things yourself, you're going to have to, so you can save money. We have a lot of people who have lost jobs. So they do have some programs out there where you can take advantage of, and you can defer your rent for 3 months. you can defer your mortgage for 3 months, and that helps a lot to save that money while you're laid off until you find another job. A lot of people are really going to have to roll up their sleeves and start doing a lot of DIY projects on their own, saving money, and understanding that a situation like this can happen anytime, and they have to be prepared. Creating an emergency fund will also help. 6 to 8 months of expenses will also help for when pandemics occur or you lose your job, that you're prepared to at least be able to survive for the next several months until you find another job.
So, when I'm thinking about, again, going back, that folk like to see their money. I grew up in an era when we didn't have much. We scraped with the things that we ate. And so then to come into this new era, like my parents or our grandparents, when we think about them, how they had so very little. And that when we were looking at that, we said to ourselves, this is not going to be me. Not realizing, not understanding the struggle and understanding what money, having a sound foundation of what money is meant for and what money is meant to do for you. So that when we got money, when we found ourselves making these incomes that we never thought we could, we went out and we splurged and we bought things. We bought big houses. We bought, because even when folk were broke, it's nothing new to see the Cadillac. Back then, in my day in the project, to see the Cadillac in the project. I mean, it was just nobody thought about it. It was just a show of like, this person got money. Person wearing certain clothes, we were like, that person got money, and not understanding. And so when we had the opportunity to earn money, what we saw in our life, we began to mimic those things, which is a poor construct. And subsequently, I think that sometimes some of us may not have always taught our children, about money. So when you give your child and you give them and you don't require them to earn it or to do things to be rewarded for it, that you just get it, that they have a wrong thinking about money. So how do we deconstruct that thought in our community about what money is? Because that's why people are getting in the 80s and 90s. That's why people were being killed, because the young guys were out on the street trying to do what? Make some money, not trying to do it the legitimate way, but this fast money. When we get money, the first thing we do sometimes is we buy more hair. When we get money, we get more eyelashes. When we get money, and these things to try to make it look like, so we personify a certain look. So how do we deconstruct that thinking? To all my sisters, look, buy all you want to buy. I ain't got no problem with it, but make sure that your finances are straight. Yeah. So how do we deconstruct that thinking so that we can, still enjoy the things we enjoy, but not be broke?
Yeah, I do agree that it does come from the household. And like you had mentioned, sometimes your parents in your household, they don't understand money. And I think that's where it's important to have it be taught in the schools, so they can get some form of education about money. So when they go out here in the real world, they understand how to manage their money, because then it just, it recycles. You recycle the same system over and over again, and you never learn about, what is an asset and what is a debt, so you're thinking that, okay, I got a car, that's value, and it's not. And I think when they get in that mindset that I have to buy all these things to show that I have money to make me feel good, it's really because they don't really understand money, how to prepare to be financially stable, and they have to get that education somewhere. And I really do try to push for it to be in the schools. The way I was part of a program, they don't offer that in all schools, but it was beneficial to me because that helped me understand how to manage my finances, because I didn't learn in my household. So that did help me, and I was able to take advantage of that. And so I just think that if we can educate them in the school first, for those who may not get the education from home, it would help greatly to reduce the debt that we have, especially amongst Black people. You know, all the debt that we're the largest consumers, so we spend the most money. It will reduce the debt. It will help us become more financially free once we are educated about our finances and understanding the value of understanding money and how to spend it. The first thing you do when you get a check is not always to spend on luxury brands. It doesn't bring wealth. It just makes you broke, you know. So you're more poor than you were the same day you got paid, you know. It's not creating any value.
So Minister Durham, your daughter, when did you start? I know you made her get a job. So what made you say to her she needs to get a job? What made you say, I want you to, open this bank account? What made you say those things to her?
So it's all part of the conversation that you are having. Me coming up as a young person, like what influenced a lot of what I did with my daughter is how I came up. I looked at things that worked well. I looked at things that didn't work so well. And I tried to, make adjustments. And so and my family coming up didn't talk about money. I didn't see any value put into saving, any value put into passing on a legacy or anything of that nature. And so, I came up spending with both hands. So, I learning from my mistakes throughout my entire adulthood. So I want to show her something different. So another thing is my wife and I, we were very intentional to put our daughter in a school system at the time she started school where she would get the best education. And fortunately for us, the school systems that we decided to put her in, they had those financial programs where they talked about and they gave them this career and they had this budget. They just went through the whole financial literacy, and that helps. And then talking about my experience, my past experience with my daughter, periodically I always go back to, hey, this is how your father had it growing up and it was just horrible. And just want her to know what her background is. Everyone doesn't live the way she lives throughout her upbringing. But what I want to ask you, April, is, it is great to be able to send your child to a school where they have that kind of a program. But unfortunately, there are many students that are part of schools that don't have that kind of program. So what I want to ask you is, are there any programs for parents that might want to go, that they can get an education, that they might want to pass that on to their children, that they can go and learn about financial literacy?
Yes, they do have different types of programs. Usually it's more so within the community. If it's not from the schools, it may be somebody offering it in the community where they can, go online and go, research their local communities and see what programs they're offering for free. With my financial coaching, I do offer financial literacy where I'll teach about budgeting, saving, investments, just for those to be able to get on a good track and understand how to save their money, how to spend wisely, because I know there aren't a lot of programs out there. So they do have some. I know the school I went to, it was in an urban community, but they were, at that time, I think they were just practicing to see how well the program will be received in school. So I was fortunate to have it at my school and I was able to get that information. And they had also informed us that I went to Bladensboro. So they was also able to inform us that, if you go online, Bladensboro Town Hall, they have some free programs out there. So sometimes your community will offer that.
Good. Can I follow up something that you said earlier, April? And I think it would be very beneficial for all of the viewing audience. You mentioned that it's important to have 6 to 8 months of expenses in an emergency fund. So yes. I would like for you to elaborate on, like, what does those expenses include? Because I've had some conversations and you say emergency fund, people talking about, what's that? So, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
April, before you answer that, before you answer that question, let me just ask Pastor Shamika, because she has small children, and I wanted our audience to hear from her We've heard from Minister Durham. He has an older daughter. But Pastor Shamika, with your younger children, are you teaching them savings and those kinds of things?
Absolutely. I grew up with a very poor mindset. I think that when it came to money, but now that I'm, knowing about the poor mindset, it helped me in a way, because I was stingy with my money. I might have had a poor mindset, but I made sure I saved my money. So by the time I got married, I'm like, babe, we're on a budget. We only can eat $40 a week. Okay. That's all we can do. We're not getting no more. And my husband likes to eat, so I had this plan now, $40 a week, $160 a month. That's all we can eat off of. And once we had kids, I'm like, oh, you're not getting that, and I purchased things like, oh, that's cute right there. We're going to get the $5 one instead of the $14.99. And it allowed me to create a mindset for them. Now they have money. All of my kids have piggy banks. And I'm like, you cannot dip into your piggy banks. And so with that, when they want to go to the store, you only have $5. You cannot spend over that. So they have that mindset right now. And so one of the things we decided to do is to get a fund for all of the kids. So when they make 21 years old, they are able to, they will have a fund where they can pick from, and now they have something. So we're teaching them that, like, we are preparing them for just really having a good financial future. So yes, we are on a diet over here.
Well, this conversation has been so rich and our time goes by so quickly. So when we come back next week, we're going to pick up with Minister Durham's question with April. I know you all have tons of questions, and guess what? I'm sure that the Holy Spirit is going to allow April to answer every one of them. But I want you to know, just come back next week. We're going to continue our conversation. And whatever you do, make sure that you stay inspired, no matter what's going on in this world, and no matter what's going on around you. Continue to be inspired.
And be informed, not only by the word of God, but by those who have placed to be world changers.
And be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
All right. See you next week.
See you next time.